I'd like to open the floor, and if there's anyone with who wants to fire off with the first of a series of burning questions, then feel free. We have one, my next door neighbor.
I don't know if it's on, but it should be. Yeah, okay, thank you. It's a question for Josip about the deployment of ECDC team, so included in the EMC, European Medical Corps. I know it's very new, because usually, I mean, the normal mission of ECDC, historical mission, was just to have to ensure surveillance inside the EU. So this is a new legal disposition that makes you going on the scene automatically, and it's a reference to what kind of outbreak you should consider to go outside the EU, or is it on a case-by-case mission?
Okay, no, I can use that.
Use that one.
I use that one. So, and as I was talking with German during the coffee break, because always having the commission, it's quite safe. If I make some mistake, or if I say some mistake in terms of legal framework or legal regulations. So, but as I understood, well, as I know, because I'm in the CDC, in our founding regulations, it is considered that ECDC staff can participate, or it's part of our mandate to participate in those international missions. What happened so far is that because that's not the core functions that we are developing, that happen not so oftenly. So it happened again in Haiti some years ago with the cholera. So it's sporadic. What is happening now is that after the experience with the Ebola, that was the biggest deployment of ECDC staff, it's clear for the management board, that is the main body in ECDC, that now is part of our commitment, that this is something in which ECDC has to contribute. But not only ECDC, so ECDC facilitating to member states, so ECDC acting as a hub for member states to contribute to those international missions with expertise, and together with the GORD missions and the MC. So it's trying to have a more active role in the field and working in the areas in which we have the capacities to develop something. Another issue is we have the capabilities. That's another topic. Because as you know, like in member states, in the EU bodies, on the agencies, there are limitations in terms of number of staff and so forth and so ahead. So, but nevertheless, whatever is the situation, we are going in that direction, and I think that in the coming years, we will be able to further develop it.
I'm Daniela Simic. I'm the doctor from the National Institute of Public Health of Serbia. My question is, because you are talking more about platforms for sharing information, is that platforms which will be developed and validated will be, access to that platforms will be for the non-EU countries, because it's important, and other tools which will be developed in the projects?
Who would like to take up on that question? Yes.
Well, we would be looking at open source tools, hopefully. Will depend on, well, it depends. We're only, this is only the beginning. This is actually scoping out what is needed. So the question is, it's really up to, whoever takes this work forward. And we would hope that any outcome or project like this would be available for countries outside. And we have already, as I mentioned this morning, we're working with WHO, not just at regional office level with Caroline, but also at headquarter level, to ensure that whatever tools are developed down the line could ultimately be used at global level, and then obviously at non-EU level. So I think it's about standardization, it's about having a common approach. And there was a program called EpiInfo, which was launched out by CDC about 25 years ago, and it became it totally revolutionized how we presented epidemiological data on outbreaks. And what I'd like to see is something in the future, another step ahead with visual analytics and dashboards tied to a resource modelling tool that would be open source and that would be available to all countries. It's not unheard of. If we are up against a major threat, if the survival of humanity is depending on us sharing information, then I think it behoves us all to work towards that. And if any of you have been in the British Museum, there's quite a scary, or the Museum of Natural History, there is a display on the second floor along with an earthquake, a simulated earthquake, and it basically says the greatest threat to mankind is a new infectious disease. So, you know, at the end of the day, we are the firefighters. We don't know where the fire or what it will be, but ultimately, while obviously in any product you develop, there's issues of cost and market and all of that, but this is a public good. If you look at 1.8 million was spent by the European Commission in the Ebola outbreak, and you look at the potential investment in tools to prevent that happening again, or to contain the next high impact epidemic, I think it's a good investment. And there's a guy called Peter Sands, who's a former banker. He was the head of Standard Chartered Bank PLC in the UK for 12 years, which is an incredibly long time apparently in the financial world. And he's now working in the States in the Harvard Kennedy School of Governance. And he has said that in terms of the threat to humanity, that the health sector needs to make a much stronger investment case for pandemic preparedness, and that we need to set out very clearly what's needed and what the cost-benefit analysis. And I think in that would be open source tools that would be available to all. Thank you.
So I think with that image that you use of the firefighters, also with a moral obligation to share data and to have it open across borders, I think that would be a really good moment to move. Since it's now a little bit past 5 o'clock, it will be a good moment to move towards the closure. And sort of concluding remarks. So, Maura, may I invite you to keep the microphone and to give some of these closing and summary remarks?
Okay, thank you, Arnold. Okay, I think first I would like to thank Philippe for the opportunity of being here today. It's a wonderful venue. It's been brilliantly organised. It's been a real pleasure to be here. And I have to say, the great benefit of doing a lot of our work in Brussels and through the links with Jean-Luc, we've had the benefit of working with Philippe and his team, and I think he's showing a really enlightening way forward for how we can work together, both the Commission, the researchers, the security community, the health community. So I think it's a very good model, and I hope it's taken on by other parts of the Commission.